When it was first announced all the way back in 2014 that director Tetsuya Nomura was being pulled off of Final Fantasy XV, many fans were in a state of dismay. They slowly began to see the game once called Versus XIII change into something unfamiliar to them. The original concept enticed fans with darker depictions of Final Fantasy than we had ever seen before, with seemingly complex character relationships and a style of gameplay that resembled something akin to Kingdom Hearts. After being removed from the project, we never got to know how Tetsuya Nomura actually felt about the final product, in which he spent over 7 years striving to bring to fruition. But now with the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, he seems to have made some strong but indirect commentary regarding his feelings toward 15, and this may even shed a little bit of light on what he plans on doing after the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Though, as a small forewarning, while this video does not contain any actual spoilers for Kingdom Hearts 3, it does contain analysis of Easter eggs in the Toy Story world. None of these details are directly important to the story of Kingdom Hearts. If you are trying to avoid every single little detail of the game, that's understandable. I'm not judging you. You may want to play through the world first and then come back to this video. With that said, nothing in this video spoils the story for Kingdom Hearts 3, just the fact that there are some details in the Toy Story world that we just cannot ignore. All in all, you should be fine watching this video. At the very start of the Toy Story world, you're shown a fake concept trailer for a video game franchise with a toy lineup. This concept trailer at first glance just looks like a really nice JRPG parody. But then, as you keep watching and noticing various details, this isn't just any JRPG. Many of the concepts are directly pulled from another game that Nomura has worked on. Not Final Fantasy XV, at least not the one we received, but more specifically, Final Fantasy Versus XIII. First and foremost, it takes place in a very modern looking city, which could easily be seen as Insomnia at nighttime from the early trailers. Insomnia, at the very least, under Tetsuya Nomura's direction, was based on various areas of Shinjuku. This city bears an overall striking resemblance to Insomnia. Even this purple energy beam coming out of the tower bears a striking resemblance to the one coming out of Noctis's tower. We're shown a protagonist that looks a lot like Noctis, although in Kingdom Hearts 3, everyone kind of looks like Noctis. But this character is far too specific to be anything else. His jacket even has crossbones with a crown on it. These types of symbols are seen all over Noctis's clothes. However, instead of an engine sword like we had seen before, he possesses a sort of red energy beam sword. We're then shown the characters in the next scene, and in the distance you can see a character bearing a very distinct appearance to Gladiolus and Mesithia. Not only are his clothes a very similar style to Gladio's, he's also carrying a very similar sized sword. And unironically, you can see they're wearing the same red bottom shoes that the main cast of Final Fantasy XV wore. We're even shown a woman that has an uncanny resemblance to Stella Nox Faray, the main heroine of Final Fantasy Versus XIII. That is, before she was replaced with 15's Lunafreya. Stella's first name means star, and shockingly enough, this character is wearing, you guessed it, a star pendant. And Stella herself wore small silver star earrings. Not to mention the glow around her bears a striking resemblance to when Stella used her power, as well as the fact that she's shown wearing an all-white dress, something that Stella and Luna are both known for. And the way this confrontation is edited is overall similar to the confrontation between Noctis and Stella in the older Versus XIII trailers. We're also shown a character that looks a lot like Arden mixed with Prompto. Though upon further analysis, this is just meant to be a red-haired Prompto altogether, and he even has similarly shaped bangs as the Versus XIII model of Prompto. Oh, and the character I mentioned that looked like Gladio from the back? Well, when you see his face, I think you already know who this character is supposed to be. Ignis Scientia, of course. They seemingly combined Ignis's face with Gladio's body and fighting style. You gotta think, that much brain and muscle? He's kind of OP. Our protagonist is then seen fighting and has a very similar fighting style to Noctis. He's able to wield a firearm and a sword at the same time. But perhaps the most ironic and metaphorical of attacks is that he entraps an enemy inside of a warp and then strikes him. I wonder what they're trying to reference here. The references get even more obvious when we're able to see that one of his eyes is blue and the other one is red. This heterochromia could actually be a reference to Noctis, whose eyes would change from blue to red. Of course, as Totally Not Noctis and Totally Not Stella reach for each other, they're torn away. I can't help but wonder where I've seen this kind of symbolism before. But after this point, we get a better look at Pseudo Stella, and yet again reveal similarities in her dress and overall character. character stature to that of Stella from Versus XIII. However, that's not where the oddities end. We're then shown the name of this parody game, and in true Square Enix fashion, it's named in Latin, Verum Rex. Verum, which means true, and Rex, which means king. So when you put them together, that's right. True King is the name of this game, as if everything else didn't make it obvious enough. Is this Tetsuya Nomura suggesting that his version of 15 would have been the true king? And here's where things get interesting. We find out in the Toy Story world of Kingdom Hearts 3 that the white-haired protagonist of this game is named Yozora. Yozora is literally Japanese for night sky. Noctis Calum is Latin for night sky. The intention here is so obvious that it would literally have to hit you over the head in order to make itself more apparent. Of course, as you're playing Kingdom Hearts 3, some of the dialogue makes it even more obvious that it's meant to be a Final Fantasy game, and more specifically, Final Fantasy Versus XIII. Rex comments that he's level 47 and he's struggling to beat Bahamut. I find it pretty interesting that he chose Bahamut in particular, an astral boss fight that was undoubtedly cut from the main story of 15. And if you think about it, the player probably would have been at level 47 when they fought him. Just kinda makes you think. The rest of the characters comment on how much Sora and Yozora look alike, and even have a similar name. This has been intentional from the start. Tetsuya Nomura, when asked in an interview who his favorite character was, he said, quote, if I had to choose a favorite character, I would say Sora and Noctis. Why them? Of course, Sora, I've been together with him for more than 10 years now. This is the first time I've been with the character for such a long time, so he's very, very special for me. And he's been adopted by Disney also. So he's a very, very good boy. More like a good son, actually. Do you know the name Sora means sky in Japanese? And Noctis, his family name is Calum, which means sky as well, so basically Noctis means night sky. So they are kind of complete opposites of each other. There's a reason I named these characters opposites to each other. Noctis is kind of like my latest boy or latest son. Nomura even said during the Dissidia NT livestream that drawing Noctis for the first time in years brought him to tears. So now that we know, almost without a shadow of a doubt, this is meant to reference Final Fantasy Versus XIII. Of course, the question now is, what does it mean, if anything at all? Could we potentially see a Final Fantasy Versus XV? Or is this simply Nomura's odd sense of humor? It's hard to imagine us actually getting a Final Fantasy Versus XV. As much as I, and apparently even Nomura himself, would enjoy seeing it, it's still hard for me to realistically see it happening. Would Square Enix really invest money into creating an alternative timeline for Final Fantasy XV? Well, it would be insanely profitable, especially if they reused assets. I feel as though they'd use those resources on a new IP, if anything. After all, the only available team at the moment is the Kingdom Hearts Osaka team. That is, of course, Business Division 3, but it's much more likely that Business Division 3 will continue to focus on Kingdom Hearts related projects. Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be ongoing in volumes for the next few years, and it basically would only be possible if they outsourced it, which, for all the trouble, it just may not be worth it. There is also the possibility, however, that Nomura could reuse all the concepts into a game that isn't a Final Fantasy, but perhaps a new IP entirely that utilizes the same storytelling and gameplay elements, similar to what Verum Rex is, but only time will tell. For now, in my view, only take this as a fun Easter egg. That's the best way not to get your feelings hurt. So Ultima Weapons, what's your assessment of Verum Rex? Do you think it's a sign of a potential Final Fantasy Versus XV on the horizon? Or do you think it's just a way of appreciating longtime fans? Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let your voice be heard in the comments below. And if you really love Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, I mean really love waiting a long time for these games to come out, then be sure to check out the Patreon for the Night Sky Prince. It helps me keep making videos for you guys, even during these long years, like my awesome buddy here, VG Mix. Link in the description below.